Hello everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Mente Aprende. I'm Jorge Franco, and I'm particularly excited today because we're continuing our series of dialogues with great figures from history, imagined conversations that seek to bring their wisdom to our modern-day challenges. Imagine for a moment that you have the fate of a quarter of the world's population on your shoulders. Imagine that every decision you make could mean peace or war, prosperity or famine for millions. And while you're dealing with that external pressure, a plague ravages your people, barbarian tribes threaten your borders, and political intrigues poison your inner circle. Now, imagine that in the midst of that absolute chaos, every night, by the light of a candle, you write, not for publication, not for posterity, but for yourself. You write to remind yourself how to be a better person, how to be more just, braver, more serene. That man was Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome at the height of its power, but also, and perhaps more importantly, a humble student of Stoic philosophy, a man who understood that the most difficult empire to govern was not the Roman one, but the empire of his own mind. From a modern psychiatric perspective, we constantly talk about emotional regulation, cognitive behavioral therapy, and the importance of differentiating our thoughts from reality. It's astonishing to discover that almost 2 millennia ago, a Roman emperor was already practicing these principles in an incredibly lucid way. He sought to build what he called his inner citadel, a mental fortress immune to external chaos. And that is the question guiding our episode today. Can we, in the midst of the 21st century, use that emperor's blueprints to build our own inner citadel? Can his lessons, forged in war and power, help us govern our anxiety, our distractions, and our search for purpose? To explore this, we have crossed the threshold of time. With the deepest respect for his historical figure and his legacy, we welcome Marcus Aurelius to Mente Aprende. Emperor Marcus Aurelius, it is an immense honor to have you with us. Thank you for granting us your time.
Time is a possession we do not truly own. It is granted to us for an instant, and then it vanishes into the infinite. I appreciate the intent of your words, but there is no honor in my presence. I am a man like any other, a man who had a duty to fulfill. Titles, like the body that wears them, are leaves that fall in autumn. The only thing that truly belongs to us is our capacity to act with reason and virtue in the role that has been assigned to us. I am here, as I am everywhere, to serve reason and the common good. Ask then.
Thank you for that perspective. It is precisely that vision of duty that brings us here. In your writings, you frequently speak of the need to retreat into an inner citadel, a fortress in the mind. Today, many of us feel under siege, perhaps not by armies, but by an incessant bombardment of information, bad news, the pressure to always be productive and to put on a show on social media. The enemy, at times, seems to be within us, in our own anxiety. My question is about the beginning, about the foundation. When you were facing the plague, betrayal, the imminence of a battle, what was the first stone you laid to build that citadel? What was the first thought, the first principle you clung to so that the chaos on the outside would not become the chaos within?
The first stone is not an action, but a distinction, a clean, precise cut in reality. It is the fundamental discernment, separating what is in your power from what is not. The siege you describe, that bombardment of voices and events, is eternal. In my time, it was reports from the front, rumors from the Senate, the laments of the sick. Today, you say they travel through screens. The form changes, but the essence is the same. They are external impressions. What is in your power, the only thing that truly belongs to you, is your ruling reason, your hegemonikon. That is to say, your judgments, your impulses, and your will to act or not to act. The plague is not in my power. The way I choose to think and act in the face of the plague is. The betrayal of a general is not in my power. My just and balanced response to that betrayal is. Chaos does not break into the citadel because the enemy is strong. It breaks in because the guardian, your own judgment, opens the gate by considering what is happening outside to be intrinsically bad or terrible. If you do not make that judgment, the event remains outside. It is just a fact, a noise in the distance. That is the first stone, sovereignty over your judgment. Everything else is built upon it.
Sovereignty over one's judgment. That is an incredibly powerful idea. What you're describing, Emperor, is, in essence, the cornerstone of many modern cognitive therapies. The premise that it's not events that disturb us, but our interpretation of those events. It's liberating to hear it formulated with such clarity and force. But this is where we, modern men and women, often stumble. We understand the principle on a rational level, but in the moment of truth, when emotion hijacks us, the anxiety before an important presentation, the anger at a blatant injustice, the deep sadness from a loss, reason seems like a distant, weak voice. What mental discipline, what practical exercise did you follow to, in that precise instant of agitation, remember that distinction and prevent a faulty judgment from taking control of your mind? How do you train that guardian not to panic and open the gates?
Your question is a good one. Reason without practice is like a bow without arrows. Useless in the moment of need. The guardian of the citadel is not strengthened by decrees, but by daily training. The exercise is simple in its description, yet demanding in its constancy. When an impression assails you, be it a report from the front or an offensive word, the first step is to withhold your assent. Do not let yourself be carried away by it. You must say to it, "Wait. Let me see what you truly are and where you come from. Let me put you to the test." The second step is the dismantling. This consists of stripping the event bare, of removing the cloak of tragedy or wonder that your mind has placed upon it. If you are served an exquisite delicacy, ask yourself, what is this? It is the carcass of a fish, of a bird. This much celebrated wine, it is fermented grape juice. My purple emperor's robe, it is sheep's wool dyed with the secretion of a shellfish. You must see the thing itself, reduced to its parts, without the value that opinion adds to it. And then the third step. Ask yourself about that naked objective fact. Is this under my control? Another man's opinion, a headache, the enemy's advance, none of that is under my control. The only thing that is under my control is whether I choose to act with virtue in response to it. This exercise, practiced again and again, weakens the power of external impressions until they cease to disturb you.
That's fascinating. What you describe is a kind of cognitive deconstruction, a method for disarming the emotional charge of an event by reducing it to its neutral physical components. Our mind is a machine for creating stories, for weaving narratives of fear or desire around facts. What you propose is a direct antidote to that automatic fabrication of meaning, a tool to see the world with an almost scientific objectivity. This exercise seems like a formidable defense against threats that come from the outside. But what about the battles that are born and die entirely within us? I'm thinking of ambition, of the desire to be remembered, of the fear of one's own insignificance, or the most universal of all fears, the fear of death. How did you apply your philosophy to these internal forces, to these yearnings and fears that are so intrinsically human and don't always respond to a concrete external stimulus?
You have moved from the outer wall of the citadel to the throne room. These battles are, indeed, the most difficult. For ambition and the fear of insignificance, the remedy is perspective. I call it the view from above. Elevate your thought. Leave your body for a moment and contemplate the entire earth from on high. What do you see? Men being born, dying, tilling the soil, fighting wars. Cities that rise and in time become forgotten ruins. Now, look at the stream of time. Think of the infinity of beings who lived before you and the infinity who will live after you. In that immensity, what is a man's fame? The applause of the crowd. It is smoke. It is the echo of a name pronounced by beings who will themselves soon be silent forever. The anxiety of being remembered is cured by understanding the ephemeral nature of memory itself. The only greatness lies in the virtuous action of the present. And as for the fear of death, you fear death because you judge it to be an evil. But nothing that is the work of nature can be an evil. Death is part of the cycle. To be born is an aggregation of elements. To die is their dissolution. It is not an end, but a transformation. What the universe lent you for a time, it simply reclaims. Furthermore, death frees you from two things, from physical pain and from being a slave to your passions and the impertinences of others. Why fear arrest? Live each day as if it were your last, not with desperation, but with fullness, justice, and serenity. Perfect the task at hand. If you do this, when your time comes, you will depart like a satisfied guest who rises from a banquet. You have done your duty.
To hear that perspective is profoundly impactful. In our current culture, we are obsessed with leaving a mark, with legacy, with impact. You propose almost the opposite, to find a profound liberation and inner peace in our own transience and in that of the universe. It is a complete reversal of our values, to not seek permanence externally, but virtue internally, in the only instant we possess, which is the now. And this leads me to my next question. If an individual succeeds in cultivating this cosmic perspective, this acceptance of their own mortality, how does that affect their social life, their relationships? You were not a hermit. You were the center of the Roman world. How does this very intimate and introspective philosophy translate into concrete actions of justice, compassion, or leadership in daily dealings with a citizen, a subordinate, or even an enemy?
The inner citadel is not a fortress for hiding from the world. It is the headquarters from which service to the world is organized. Introspection that does not lead to better action is self-indulgence. We were born for cooperation. Like feet, like hands, like the two rows of teeth. To obstruct one another is unnatural. We are citizens of a single state, the universe. My nature as a man is to be rational and social. Therefore, what is good for me cannot be bad for the hive, and what is good for the hive is good for the bee. The common good is my own good. This transforms the way you view others. When a man acts with malice, with anger, or with arrogance, he does so out of ignorance.
He believes, mistakenly, that it is good for him. He does not know the true nature of good and evil. Your duty is not to match his ignorance with your anger. Your duty is, if you can, to instruct him with kindness, and if you cannot, to tolerate him. They are your kin, led astray and confused. Do you get angry with the fig tree because it produces figs? No, you simply accept its nature. Even when facing an enemy, this principle holds. My duty as emperor was to defend the borders of Rome. But my duty as a philosopher was to remember that the man on the other side of the sword was also a human being, with his own ruling reason, however misguided. I fought against their actions, not their humanity. Justice, therefore, emanates from this understanding, to give everyone what is due to them as a member of our human family.
What is good for the hive is good for the bee. This idea of a universal citizenship, that we are all members of one body, is a radical antidote to the tribalism and polarization that poison our world today. So, the internal work isn't an act of selfishness, but quite the opposite. It is the necessary condition for external work. To be truly just, compassionate, and useful to society, we must first put our own house in order, our own mind. Personal serenity is the foundation of social justice. Emperor, we have journeyed from the walls of the mental citadel to the vision of humanity as a single organism. It has been an extraordinary journey. To conclude, and thinking of all the people listening to us who will face their own daily battles tomorrow, what would be the single command, the essential idea from your philosophy that you would want them to remember and apply at the very instant they awaken?
At dawn, when you struggle to get out of bed, have this thought ready. I am rising to do the work of a human being. And prepare yourself. Say to yourself, today I will meet with the meddlesome, the ungrateful, the arrogant, the deceitful, the envious, the unsociable. They are this way because they are ignorant of what is good and what is evil. But you, who have come to understand the nature of good, which is beautiful, and that of evil, which is shameful, and the nature of the one who errs, who is your kin, not by blood, but because they partake of the same intelligence and a share of the divine. You cannot be harmed by any of them. No one can stain you with their ugliness, nor can you be angry with your kin or hate them, for we were born to collaborate. Get up and fulfill your duty.
Emperor Marcus Aurelius, there are no words. Thank you for the immensity of your wisdom and for your time. And with that, we return to our time. What a journey! I hope this conversation resonates with you as much as it has with me. The wisdom of Marcus Aurelius is not an abstract philosophy, it's an operating manual for life. If I had to summarize today's lessons, I would stick with 3 key ideas. First, the radical importance of differentiating what we can control, our judgments and actions, from what we cannot. There, in that distinction, serenity is born. Second, the need to actively build our inner citadel, not with bricks, but by dismantling our automatic judgments, seeing things as they are, stripped of the emotion we project onto them. And finally, that this mental fortress is not a selfish refuge. It is the foundation that allows us to act with justice, compassion, and to fulfill our fundamental duty, to contribute to the common good. Perhaps tomorrow, upon waking, we can try that exercise he has given us, to remember, in the face of the day's difficulties, that our most important job is simply to be good human beings. Thank you for joining us on Mente Aprende. If this episode has provided you with value, the best way to support us is by sharing it with someone who might find it helpful, and by subscribing on your favorite podcast platform, whether it's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube. And we would love to continue the conversation on social media. Find us at @Mente Aprende. I'm Jorge Franco. Take care of your mind. Until next time.